PM. If we could please have roll call
Chair Garcia,
here.
Vice Chair Zavala,
Here.
Commissioner Urquidez,
Here.
Commissioner Gallardo,
Here.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Here.
Thank you for that. And can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We are now on item D, public comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. Are there any public comments from chambers? Anybody online?
No comments.
And no written emails?
No emails.
Okay. We'll move on to consent agenda. We have two items: adoption of the June 6, 2023 Planning Commission minutes and adoption of the July 5th, 2023 Planning Commission minutes.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the minutes from the meetings.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We can move on to public hearing. We have one item for public hearing this evening, and it is the consideration of a resolution approving a conditional use permit to allow for a type 40 liquor license for sales of beer for on-site and off-site consumption at 229 El Camino Real, Suite B, APN 024-033-004. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, members of the Planning Commission. Welcome to our newest commissioner, Commissioner Vasquez.
Can I just please interrupt just for 1 second? Sure. I wanted to let those who are watching on Zoom or online that we do have interpretation. Our interpreter is online. I think if you, is that the interpreter? Yeah. Okay, hi. So I think if you just log on to the Zoom, that meeting ID is 876-8074-3187, and there's no passcode that is required. So there's a button on there to press for translation. Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Mullane.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. I needed the time to log on myself, so I'm going to join audio and share my screen here, and we'll get started. Okay. All right, there we go. So this evening is a yet another conditional use permit before the commission. This is for a type 40 liquor license for a building that's currently under construction at 229 El Camino Real. So this is just south of La Esperanza Market that you deliberated on and approved last month. It is a building under construction, and the air photo here shows us the site location. The red mark is at La Esperanza Market. Paul was kind enough to go out, Mr. Mugan was kind enough to go out and take some photographs of the site under construction. Many of you have probably driven by it several times a week, so you see the progress. They're making good progress. The building is not done. What is happening right now with the building is that they're doing the shell improvements that were part of your design review back in September of 2021. And at that time, it was about a 1,600 square foot building that was separated into two tenant spaces right down the middle. And I actually have some plans later on that will help identify this. The request was for the northern suite B, which is the one closest to La Esperanza Market. However, since the staff report came out, there's been some building code issues that have come up that are driving the applicant to consider suite A instead. And I'll get into that later in my meeting, but it's, the project information says suite B. That was in your staff report, but actually it's either suite A or perhaps the whole building. So Lysandra Barron, the applicant, is in the audience tonight, and she'll be able to speak to that and some of the conversations she's had with our building official. The owner is Mrs. Carmen Barone. Again, it's a type 40 ABC license, which we don't have any in the city right now. It is for a bar or tavern, and it's where beer can be sold for consumption on the site, or it can be sold for purchase and a takeaway off the site. The hours, the absolute maximum hours that Ms. Barone is interested in is 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. She wants it to be very family friendly and does not anticipate staying open until 11 p.m. most nights. But I let her know that whatever she needs to say what her maximum hours are so that the ABC license can follow suit and the CUP from the city can follow suit. Similarly, she's proposing opening as early as 10 a.m., but does not anticipate doing that very often. That would be on game days and whatnot for certain times of the year. And she can clarify some more on that if you'd like. So again, this is the site plan that was approved by the commission for the new building back in September of 2021. The parking, what in this photograph down at the bottom is the El Camino Real frontage. The wide sidewalks are shown with the boxes and rectangles, and then you have the building right here that's a rather long and skinny building, and it's set up for two spaces. I have a floor plan that I'll show you in just a moment, but I want to draw to the commission's attention the offset in the building front here. Suite B, which is the one on the right towards the La Esperanza Market, is the front of that building goes right up to the back of the sidewalk. Whereas Suite A, the one to the left, is set in a little bit. There's a little bit of articulation there. And that was for aesthetic reasons, but it actually turns out it's important for building code reasons. And I'll get into that later in the presentation. You can see in the rear of the site, going towards the alley that's behind ECR, are 5 parking spaces. And landscaping, one of those is ADA compliant. The number of parking spaces was a concern of the commission back in 2021. We didn't know what tenants would be coming in. And I specifically remember the commissioners talking about maybe if a restaurant came in, there would be perhaps not enough parking. And that is the case. However, there's a section in our parking regulations that allow, in a situation like this, a tenant to enter into an off-site parking agreement, which will basically guarantee the city that they have enough parking on another site that doesn't need all the parking. And that's been identified as a condition of approval. So I just want to point that out now before we get too focused on the fact that there's only 5 parking spaces on site. And as you know, there are diagonal spaces along El Camino Real. There's a mid-block crosswalk that also provides access to the east side of El Camino Real. So here's the floor plan again that was approved for the shell, and this was from your design review in September 2021. You have the 2 tenant spaces with a wall, a non-load-bearing wall separating them, and then you have 2 restrooms, one for Suite A and one for Suite B in this. But it was recognized that even at that time that tenants would come in, they would have their own needs and their own desires for the layout of their equipment in there. And oftentimes we would see what's called a tenant improvement plan, which is basically a building permit for improving the inside and putting in walls and outlets and plumbing fixtures and whatnot. So that's where we are now. We have the buildings under construction just for this shell without any interior improvements other than the bathrooms. And then as tenants come forward, they're going to go into the building department for a tenant improvement permit application, which would be reviewed by the building staff, building official. And at that time also, we do what's called a zoning clearance, and we make sure that whatever use is proposed in those spaces is consistent with the allowed uses in the zoning code. And in this case, since it is a facility serving alcohol, it does require a conditional use permit. So sometimes things are just allowed in the zoning code. Sometimes different uses are prohibited in that zoning district for whatever reason. And in this case, there's a conditional use permit required before a ABC license could be secured in a bar or restaurant serving liquor, alcohol allowed there. So just from the perspective of the applicant, they want to lease the space for a bar. They are here before the commission looking for a conditional use permit to allow them to get an ABC license. If the answer is no, which it can be no from the commission this evening, then they don't want to necessarily spend the time and money to put together the tenant improvement plan that goes to the building process, because that is expensive. They have to hire an architect, not a designer, an architect. They have to pay the building permit check fees. Although ideally we would see, a clear floor plan, we would know exactly what the name of the business was, all these things, like you might see at a Starbucks or a Carl's Jr. or a franchise place. We don't have that in this situation. We have a person that's interested in renting the space and would like to know if this is appropriate to the city planning commission to have a bar in that space. And again, the answer may be yes, and it may be no. That's entirely up to the planning commission's consideration or discretion. These are the elevations back from September, just to refresh your memory. And the top right is the front of the building that faces El Camino Real. Tenant space B is the one that's pulled up to the sidewalk, is on the right. The one that's inset a few feet is on the left. And there's also the possibility that a single tenant could occupy both spaces. And in that case, they could actually take down that center wall and have one big space with two entryways at the front of El Camino Real and two bathrooms. So as we got into the analysis of this in more detail, some issues came up. One related to the building code, or a couple related to the building code, and egress, or getting out of the building. The requirement for places that have a higher density of people, that have more people in the building, they need to have doors that in the event of an emergency open out. And so that's very important. If I go back to the floor plan, oops, wrong way. The reason that if you look closely on suite B, that doorway opens in, and the reason it's shown as opening in is because it can't open out into a sidewalk. You can't just have doors opening into sidewalks. That's a conflict. So it was permitted as a shell with the door opening in, but Hearst, what we learned through the process in recent discussions, just I think Friday and Monday with the building official, is that door has to open out. So suite B is not going to work for her needs by itself. So then she said, would it be okay if I changed the request to suite A? And I said, we can present that to the commission. And if you're amenable to that, then we would just want to note the changes to the resolution and the conditions of approval. She also may be interested in renting both spaces. And I have some conceptual floor plans that she provided today that I'll share with the commission later on. But if you look at this, again, at this floor plan, suite A, the suite on the left, has a door that does that can be, right now it's shown as opening in, but it can be changed as part of the tenant improvement permit to go out, and it would not interfere with the sidewalk. It would be on private property opening into that little radius there, that little semicircle. So that is a viable space for a bar with the number of people that are expected to occupy that building. And that is why Ms. Barron is requested looking at Suite A as a possibility. So the other issue that came up is the shell was built with just one bathroom for each of the two suites. So 2 bathrooms total in the building, but one would be used by one tenant, one would be used by the other tenant. And planning staff were concerned that wasn't enough bathroom capacity for a bar, and we really should have a men's room and a women's room and a urinal in the men's room as well as a toilet. It turns out that's a building code requirement for assemblies of that intensity. So they're going to have 2 bathrooms for this use unless they really get their size down to a point where they would not be required under the building code. And I don't even know if that's feasible. So in the staff report, I said this is a building code requirement. We did not make it a condition of approval because it's a building code requirement. However, given the uncertainty as to where what space she may be in, if it's Suite A or if it's the entire building, you may want to make it a condition of approval that there are 2 bathrooms for this use, whether it's in one suite or 2 suites. And there are ways to provide access to both bathrooms for both tenants. There's a way to set that up so that 2 bathrooms are available for the bar use and 2 bathrooms are available if there's a different tenant in space B. So it's a little trickier than we thought it was going to be as we got into the staff report. And then I mentioned already the parking deficiency for off-street parking. And I will say, and I noted this in the staff report, that lots of cities have relaxed parking standards for downtown areas because the lots are small. It's difficult to put the parking on the small lots and still have viable development. Our municipal code does not provide for relief in the downtown area. It may at some point in the future, and particularly if there's more interest in developing the downtown. We hear more from owners and developers that, hey, this is a big constraint. We can't make it work with the parking requirements that you have. And so in the future, if the city ever did have specific parking standards for the downtown area, then this applicant would be relieved of that need to get a offsite parking agreement, which currently is included as a condition of approval. But again, because there's not enough parking for the use per our parking regulations, we are requiring them to enter into and maintain an offsite parking agreement, and that's not all that uncommon in areas. In this case, the property owner has other properties nearby that Ms. Barron has already said that they would be willing to enter into an agreement. That agreement we don't have at this point. Again, if we could have asked for it at this point, but it's also if the answer were no bar, then there's not a lot of value in having the applicant go through that process. But the way we have it set up is that they need to provide it to staff before the building gets final planning inspection, the current building under construction. And then before they get occupancy, assuming they get a CUP from the commission and assuming they get an ABC license, before they occupy and start using that, they would have to deliver to the city staff a fully executed agreement with a neighboring property for that offsite parking. And we could look at how the spaces are laid out and the number of spaces and all that. Let's say they get that and there's a disagreement with that property owner 6 months down the line. It's incumbent on them to find another place to get the offsite parking agreement. And typically those would be like, at least 2-year, 3-year or longer leases so that there's some certainty. But it's the requirement is not, oh, well, we had it and now we lost it, so we want to keep operating. The requirement in the condition of approval is they need to maintain it. So if they get a notice from their from the property owner that they're no longer able to use that for shared parking, then they need to find another spot, or they need to suspend operations, essentially. So that's how the condition language is set up in the conditions of approval. So these were the conceptual floor plans that Ms. Barron provided today. And this first one shows the same orientation of the building. So Suite B, where she cannot put open bars to the right. But in this configuration, this would be if she were to lease Suite A, and just kind of a schematic of where the bar would lay out, where some of the tables would be. And then you can see in the top, those orange quarter circles are for the doors that would provide access to both bathrooms in this scenario. So they would be shared. The bathrooms would be shared with Suite A and Suite B, like you see in like a food court or something. There's a shared bathroom for all the uses. Every little restaurant doesn't have its own restroom. And she would be occupying the balance, the probably 60% of the building. She would have use of the bathroom space on the other side, but the bar area would be on the left side of the building, so that you have that egress out into the private property, not onto the sidewalk at the front. The second alternative that she's considering, and we should hear from her in the public hearing, maybe she has a preference at this point, or maybe the commission has preferences, but this would be the scenario where she leases the entire building for the bar. Obviously, instead of 800 square feet, it would be 1,600 square feet. They would have no issues with the restrooms. You have the 2 restrooms that are being built right now. You have the egress that's needed for the Suite A, and then a larger bar area and just more spread out, but probably not that many more occupants. We could ask her if she has an idea of that. I think it's important to see these conceptual floor plans because it is a bar. It's a little bit different use than some of the other conditional use permits that this commission has reviewed for restaurants and for convenience stores. This has not been submitted to the city. This is just a concept, but this helps illustrate that she is willing to look at renting the entire building if that's. And some of it is quite frankly, is a policy call of Planning Commission. What do you all feel is a better fit for that location? First of all, do you support the artisan craft brewery in that or beer house in that location? And then if you do you prefer the smaller space shown in this just Suite A, or the larger space having the entire building and a little bit more control over the restrooms and whatnot, and the parking as well? So as we talked about last month and maybe the month before as well, there's alcohol beverage control. The State Department manages the licenses for the state, and they manage these by census tract. And this is in downtown areas, and most of it is in the 112.03. There are, as I mentioned earlier, there are no Type 40 licenses. So this would be the first Type 40. And I should say that Type 40 requires food to be available, snacks and sandwiches, things of that nature. It can't just be beer and beer only. So they have to have some food, but it's short of a restaurant. But that's an ABC license requirement. And there are quite a few licenses within the census tract. The ones that are highlighted are the ones in the same downtown area. But again, no other just beer location, artisan beer or otherwise. And as you remember, you just reviewed and approved a conditional use permit for the La Esperanza Market right next door. So our staff recommendation is to approve the CUP, but just like many of these other similar requests for liquor licenses or CUP to allow a liquor license, it's really up to the commission. It's totally within your purview to go a different direction. And some of those alternatives are to deny it outright, say we're not comfortable issuing a CUP at this location. And another alternative would be to continue the item for more information. You could get a more detailed floor plan. You could get better certainty on what lease space, unless Ms. Barron has that in her public hearing comments. We could actually see a draft parking agreement. She's indicated that she's able to secure one, but you could see one. And that's staff is actually okay either way on that. I think we have enough information at this point to still recommend approval, but again, it's up to the commission's comfort level. And then you could also approve the conditional use permit with specific changes to the conditions of approval, including, as I mentioned earlier on, you may want to add explicitly the condition that whatever the spacing is within that building, it needs to access to two bathrooms, just to make that explicit, if that's the will of the commission. And then I just want to point out, as I have with other CUPs for liquor licenses, they are revocable. So if there are issues, or if parking's an issue, if there's complaints or high crime, these can come back to the commission in a revocation hearing. The CUP holder has a ability to attend that meeting, and if it does not go the way that they want to, they could appeal that to the city council. But there are more safeguards on a CUP than there are for design reviews and other types of permits. And then if you want to get into the details of the condition of approval, I just included this last slide. But we talked about condition 8, which is the offsite parking requirement, and would have to modify condition 1, which says the location of the CUP. And then the last condition 10 has hours where sale of alcoholic beverages would be allowed, and that's between it's prohibited from 11 p.m. at night until 10 the next morning. So that was a little bit lengthy of a staff report. There's a few issues that came up, so I want to make sure that you all are fully informed of that. And I think the applicant's input during the public hearing would be beneficial as well. And with that, I'll take any questions from the commission.
Thank you for that report. Do you guys have any initial questions for Mr. Mullane?
No, I do. Yeah, so going on the premise that they only decide to take one building. Okay, so they still have to add a second restroom, right?
My understanding is that they would under the building code, but I'm saying as part of the CUP approval, you could condition that and just make it absolutely clear that that has to happen.
I mean, if what you say about the building code, then they would have to be obligated to do it because of the building code.
I think there may be a way, if they scale back the size, that they could get to a point where they would only need one, but I think that would be difficult to do and still have a viable use there.
Okay.
So again, it's up to the commission. You don't have to add that as condition of approval. You may, if you feel more comfortable doing that.
Okay. About the door, the swinging door.
Mm-hmm.
If she decides to take both buildings,
Mm-hmm.
on what you're showing is one of the doors is going to swing out, but the other one's still going to swing in.
Right.
Shouldn't they both have to swing out?
I think
And
that.
then if, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But then if they do, then you're saying something about it's going to swing into the sidewalk. So how would they remedy that?
I would want to talk that over the building official, but and Ms. Barron has perhaps already done that. The egress requirement may be just the one door in the front and one door in the back. So they may have it if they have the whole building. All four doors wouldn't have to open out. It would just be, but it would want to make sure that that's the case for the building officials, certainly. And Ms. Barron may have already had that conversation with him.
Okay, and the outside parking now. Is there a limitation to how far it can be or how close it has to be?
There is in the draft condition, we say within a quarter mile of the location. So not, a mile away, something
I mean, they could
walkable.
conceivably park down at the church.
Right. But the agreement is for parking for that bar use at that location. So they would get basically a right to park 10 cars there.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all I have for now.
Commissioner, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Hi. Do you know the maximum occupancy for building A? And if they decide to do it all in one, A and B, what is the maximum occupancy?
I do not know that offhand. Miss Barron may have that information. I know that 50 is an important number. So once you hit 50, there are additional things you need to do. And my guess is that even one of those suites would be at 50 based on the use, the bar use. But she has had more recent conversations with the building official on these issues than I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be good to ask her that question as well.
Okay. And then, do we have a location for the off-site parking agreement?
She may have had some discussions. The requirement is that they need to provide that for city staff review before the building is finished. And then we need to have it executed, signed by both parties and submitted to the city before they start the use there. So we'll know at that time, but it gives them time to find the suitable location. And it would be for about 10 spaces.
Oh, okay. That's it for me.
I have a couple of quick questions. First of all, I'd like to thank you for doing these drawings because I was kind of trying to visualize it myself, and this helps a lot. You say the building's in a shell form right now. Is there currently a wall dividing the two, or is it open at this point?
There is a wall under construction, is my understanding, and it's not a load-bearing wall, so it could be taken down. It does not have to go in to support the building. Okay,
and this actual drawing that you have here, it's hard to see. I keep trying to stretch it out, but it doesn't stretch out. So I see a sink for hand washing and I see a dishwasher, but I can't. Oh, thank you. Okay, that's better. There you go. So I'm wondering if what I don't see is a sink big enough for cleaning, for like getting a mop bucket and stuff like that. Is that something that is required for restaurants, or I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, you're asking building code questions. So if it's a requirement, they would have to provide it. So this is a schematic, conceptual. They're going to have to comply with the county environmental health. They're going to have to comply with all the building officials. So if they need, a triple sink, and it's not shown on this concept plan, they'll have to have it before they get any approvals.
Okay. All right. If you could leave this up in case we have questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So if there's no more questions from the commission, the applicant would like to come up.
You want to open the public hearing?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Opening public hearing.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hello, my name's Lysandra Barone. Thank you for considering my application for the conditional use permit, the type 40 license. The 2 units that are currently under construction at 229 El Camino Real is the site where I would like to open a craft beer tap house. My goal is to have it be a very fun and inviting environment, most especially family friendly. Just a social gathering space for locals and potential tourists to hang out. You can grab a beer, grab a tabletop board game, and just hang out and socialize. Even catch a sports game, things of that nature. Enjoy some tasty snacks that I will plan on having available. I really want to create a visual appeal on the inside as well as the outside, have a nice sign, make it very inviting and warm inside for our customers. I don't want to cater to that late night crowd. I'm not looking to be a nightclub or anything like that. A lot of our neighboring South County cities, such as King City, has the Cork and Plow. Gonzalez has the 4th Street Tap House. Soledad has, I think, the Taste of Pentacles, and they're not open late at night. They draw in a crowd that's just, going in to hang out. Everybody can go in, and their hours, they close at 10 o'clock. They have reasonable business hours. In opening a tap house here locally in downtown Greenfield, I feel locals wouldn't have to travel far, leave Greenfield to go out and have a nice night out, an afternoon out, and can safely return home because they'll be close enough here in downtown Greenfield. Tourists visiting Arroyo Seco. I know there's traveling sports teams, youth sports that come out to Greenfield, South County, all down just South County. There's a place to come afterwards and just hang out and have a drink. Like I said, it's going to be family friendly for minors as well. In my humble opinion, I believe bringing a tap house to downtown Greenfield would really be a great development. It'll bring value and attention to downtown Greenfield, and that's what I would like to contribute to the city. So thank you for your consideration for my petition for the conditional use permit. I know there was some concerns you had regarding parking, and I have answers to all of your questions that I heard.
Okay, thank you for that. If you could stay, and does anyone have questions for Ms. Burrell?
I do. You're going to allow children in there too?
It's minors will be allowed, yes, because type 40 is, I may only serve beer, no wine or liquor may be served. And neighboring tap rooms here locally in South County have as well, and they have a good safety, record. Good. It draws in a different crowd, I feel, when minors are allowed to go in. Like, you're not. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
So they're going to have soft drinks and snacks.
Yes, I will have soft drinks. I imagine having, large Bavarian pretzels with, some delicious cheese, churros for kids, a lot of different drinks, different, beverages for kids, fun things, or for minors can also, I want to include everybody. I want to be all inclusive.
I have one other question. Now, outside parking, do you have locations now, or are you soliciting for locations?
I do have 2 locations. The owner of the property that we will be leasing, she is also the owner of 236 El Camino Real, which is the large empty lot right across La Esperanza Market. So I don't foresee parking being a problem whatsoever. Also, adjacent to La Esperanza Market on the north side, there's also a large, there's some vacant area there that we can also use for parking as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do. So you're talking about serving snacks. Are you actually going to serve any real food?
The conditional use permit, the type 40 license does not require me to sell full meals, if that is what you're referring to.
I understand that.
Okay.
But just because it's not necessary doesn't mean you're not going to do it.
Correct. I will have snacks like charcuteries. I will have pretzels, but not full meals. I'm not trying to be a restaurant. It's
okay.
Basically, I will have food for our guests to enjoy a variety.
The parking lot that you make reference to across the street, that would be the one that's north of that little pool hall laundromat type thing?
Correct.
The one you make a reference to?
Correct.
That isn't paved, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay. So looking forward, let's go on the premise that we have rain like we just had this past season, which would really be great, I think. And people are parking over there. They're going to track all that mud into your place.
That is a great question.
It wasn't a question.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
It was a statement.
Oh, sorry.
No, but can you see that being a problem though?
It could, yes.
And even right there between the building and that arts and craft place there. That's not paved either, is it?
I believe it is. Well, there's gravel and currently it's under construction. I'm not sure. I have to
I'm
double
not
check.
talking about gravel or, I'm talking about actual pavement. But it's not, is it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so that could actually be a potential hazard. There really people getting out of the cars and slipping and falling in mud and stuff. So. Okay, that's for the time being. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, so in those two lots or spaces that you were talking about, do you know how many parking spaces, more or less?
I do not, I'm sorry, but there's an abundance, especially in that front empty lot and quite a bit on this side. I'm estimating maybe 10 on the north of La Esperanza Market. And the large lot, I mean, it's currently not under construction, it's not paved or anything like that. So it's a large open lot, whatever I'm allowed to park on there. And if I need to prep, area prepped, I mean, I can talk to the owner and see what we can arrange
Okay.
in the meantime.
And then I know I asked Mr. Mullane, but do you know the maximum occupancy if you just do building A? And all of it?
Each one, let me bring this up. Each space empty, it's 60 occupants per space. But once the layout is set, as far as where the bar stool, where the countertop and storage and all that fun stuff inside, the space that's left over, I think that's how they determine the maximum occupancy. So that would be most likely determined once we have the layout as to what our maximum occupancy is.
And your intent is to get to the whole building, right? A and B. That's what.
Definitely, we have the first unit locked in, either unit we choose. But in the event that we have one unit for sure locked in, this situation regarding the second restroom, I didn't become aware of it until Friday, unfortunately. So I haven't had a chance to talk to the owner as far as potentially getting the whole place, but it's a possibility. Yes.
Okay. That's it.
So may I ask Mr. Mullane a question here? Does the square footage of a building determine the maximum occupancy?
The square footage does, that's occupiable. So as Ms. Barron said, you don't count bathrooms, for example, and so it's the square footage and the usage. So different usages have different building code classifications that generate a different factor for how many occupants that is.
I have a couple of questions. Thank you for coming once again. So you're kind of right next to the Cultural Arts Center. Would you be able to get, because they're not fully occupied at all times, could that be a potential site to enter into a parking agreement, off-site parking agreement?
Yes, I'm open to it. I would definitely reach out to them.
And do you have, I mean, I'm sure it's a matter of finances, leasing one building versus leasing two, but do you have the capacity to lease the two? Because I do feel that two restrooms are necessary, especially if it's going to, the type 40 does allow for children in there. And I think one bathroom is kind of problematic.
Yes, I've been in contact with Mr. Cornejo, the building official, and we talked about different options. That's why I provided the mock-up to Mr. Mullane. If we were to occupy only unit A, the first on the southern part, there is a way that we could create the two restrooms to become community restrooms so that both units have access to them during business hours. And he confirmed with me that that is a possibility that we could do, given that we obtain an architect that does the plans for all that. And if we occupy the whole thing, then the two bathrooms, I mean, that issue is resolved.
Do you have a preference for occupying one versus both?
Whatever you'll let me do.
Okay, and do you have a particular aesthetic or theme that do you have a name for it?
I have a few names, but I don't want to, I
Right.
don't know, kind of want to keep it low key, but I want to make it nice, very aesthetically pleasing. You go in there like, wow, you get to go on a date, take somebody, just somewhere nice, just pretty, not so much pretty, but pleasing for both. I want to make it just very nice and inviting. Like there's effort put in that place.
Well, I'm encouraged by the comparables that you use with the Cork and Plow and Top and that 4th Street Tap House. I noticed there's not a dance floor. No? Okay, and do you consider Modelo and 805 a craft beer?
I mean, I need to appeal to everybody. So if I at first it's going to be trial sampling what my customers like, what our Greenfield customers enjoy. So that is probably how I'll base off what I have, but I will plan on having a variety.
Okay, yeah, because I read recently somewhere that Modelo took over as the number one, taking over Bud Light. So. I think that's all I have. So if you don't have anything else to add,
No, just thank you. And
thank you for coming. So our public hearing is still open. If there's any other public comments from chambers.
Good evening,
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very encouraged by the aesthetic and nice. I will say this. I go to Jason Pinnacle, Tap House, and other establishments because I'm trying to get away from my children on a daily basis. I'm not trying to have kids running around playing games when I'm having a social event or I'm dressed up. So, that's kind of a little bit of a, if I want to go have a quality beverage, I got baseball players running all around me. So that is kind of something that I would hope children wouldn't be allowed into. But other than that, thank you very much. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you for that comment. And just to clarify, the type 40 license, which we don't have in town, this would be the first one. That is one of the components of it. It's on-site beer, off-site beer, sandwiches, like prepared foods, and children are allowed. So it's just the type of license. You can't say no to that. Are there any other public comments online?
Public comments.
Please.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm and I in police sector in the project. I'm also the manager of the August1 market. As far as the concern for the parking, the north side of the August1 is fully paved, which is pretty much a bunch of our trailers, road trucks, and it's got some stuff there that if removed, pretty much you can turn that into maybe 10 parking spaces, and with an agreement, of course, we would designate parking spaces for that space, and they needed that wouldn't be an issue. They were across the street, there was no pavement, there was no mud, so that would be, a solution for that. Also, just we're all parents, right? So whenever we go out, it's like we put me in my wife, we want to just go and watch the game, have a beer, but then you can't because you have it. So for the most part, the places that we go to, it doesn't really, it's not like so a certain time we have kids there, and then after 7 o'clock, you don't really see kids there. More people acknowledge two different, but as far as that goes, I think it would be a great opportunity.
Thank you for the comment. Do we have any hands raised? I don't see any.
No hands raised.
Okay, seeing no further public comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. Move on to planning commission discussion and decision. I'll start this way.
Well, I'm super excited for this. Thank you for bringing this to us. I'm excited. I love what I see, and this is just a simple mock-up. So I'm really excited. I know that the parking is an issue, so hopefully we can get that figured out. But yeah, I really love this.
Commissioner Vasquez, do you have any comments?
No, no comments.
Okay, Commissioner Gallardo?
No.
Commissioner Rodriguez? Okay, well, I share in the excitement. I think this is something new to downtown that is much needed. Do you want to reiterate the 805 part? Yeah, I'm excited for you. I do think that we need to include in our motion the condition of approval that there be 2 bathrooms so that there's no building code issues or, crowd issues or anything like that, especially with, the number of people that are allowed and children, you never know. If anybody's inclined to make a motion.
And Madam Chair, before you entertain a motion, so the resolution right now reads Suite B, so 229 Suite B. So your motion should include the additional condition of approval that you mentioned, and then also direction to staff to update the project description condition of approval, which is number 1, and the resolution wherever it says 229B. I would recommend at this point just making it generic to 229. It sounds like the commission doesn't have an issue with whether it's the whole space or just Suite A. And in that case, the ABC license would dictate the spatial allowances. So I think if you just have it 229 El Camino Real, then that gives the applicant flexibility to either have the whole building or just Suite A with the 2 bathrooms.
Do you have that or you want me to make it? Did you write all that?
I think so. Let me
Okay.
try.
Okay.
I moved that the Planning Commission of the City of Greenfield adopt resolution number 2023-13, approving a conditional use permit for sales of beer for on and off-site consumption at 229 El Camino Real, adding the 2 bathrooms. A condition approval for adding the 2 bathrooms.
And directing staff to update conditional approval 1
And that.
and the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
A motion and a second. Do we need a roll call vote? We'll do a roll call vote.
Chair Zavala?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Chair Garcia. My apologies.
Yes.
Vice Chair Zavala?
Yes.
Commissioner Riquidez?
Yes.
Commissioner Gallardo?
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Welcome. Okay, moving on, we have. Sorry. Okay, we're moving on to item G, other business. And that is an update on an advisory design review of new building at Hicks Park for Tom Rogers Museum, northwest corner of El Camino Real and Palm Avenue. There's staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sharing my screen with a different presentation here. All right. So this is a somewhat new but somewhat old project, but it's there's new and exciting movement on it. So we recently learned from Public Works staff that a prefabricated building is available for donation to whoever wants to receive it. The only hitch is it has to be in place by I think it's about 60 days from now, so towards the end of September. And it just so happens that that prefab building is the same size of a building that was designed for Hicks Park for the Tom Rogers Museum about 20 years ago. So we're bringing this to the commission as an update, but also as an advisory design review in case you have any comments. And so this first slide shows the location of Hicks Park and the placement of the prefab structure. My understanding is, let me get my cursor going here, is near this semicircle here. It's at the northwest corner of El Camino Real and Palm. And some history, you all, or some of you all may remember that there was a grant awarded for a Tom Rogers Museum back in the mid 2000s. I think 2004 was when it was programmed into the CIP. The construction plans were actually drawn up for a building, a stick-built building at that location, but work not commenced. And I don't have the full story on that, but I'm assuming it was grant related or funding related. And as I mentioned, from the University of California, Santa Cruz, there's basically an extra brand new prefabricated building that they don't need on their campus, that they thought they needed, they don't need it. So they want to donate it to a worthy recipient. And it also just so happens that this is a very similar size and a similar kind of interior layout as the 2007 design. So it fits really well on that site and that location, and the price is right. It's drastically reducing the overall project cost, as the building itself, including the interior components, is already constructed and ready for emplacement. It is getting donated to the city via the Parks District. So the Parks District that maintains Oak Park is receiving this from the university, and then they're turning around and donating it to the city for emplacement at Hicks Park. And as I mentioned, there is a time requirement that must be met, and that's towards the end of September. The city also retains a small budget to hire an architect and to install or construct minor design improvements, so they can take this prefab building that's a little bit plain, but dress it up with various design improvements. So here's the floor plan for the prefab building, and you can see it's a little over 1,200 square feet in size. It has offices already built. These walls are existing, a conference room, and then kind of an open area that was set up for cubicles that could be used for any variety of reasons. There's an overhang here, so this is like a covered porch on that side of the building, and it's not a total flat top roof, but it's relatively flat. It's got a little bit of a hip on the top, and it is about 12 feet in height. The elevations for this prefab unit are shown on this slide, and the main entrance is shown on that second elevation. So that would face Palm Avenue. And then there's I take it back. That's the conference room door. The main entrance is on the side here, and that's where that roof overhang would be. And the design improvements that could be done include any and all of the following, budget allowing. There's a possibility for a reception grade deck at the front of the building. They could beautify the building with arbors and landscaping, lattices with also landscaping, and then medallions and window treatments. So any of those would be something that the architect that's hired to do these, to come up with some design improvements, would be putting together, and that may even be able to come back to the Planning Commission when we have more information, some of those details, as long as it meets the timeline. So kind of an exciting project. It's a long-standing goal to get a museum there for the Greenfield's first mayor, and this is an opportunity that's just very recently presented itself. We still need to work out some of the kinks of the procurement process, and it's not in the CIP right now, but it's a pretty small project. So the public works director and city engineer and city manager are working through that. So again, it's an opportunity this evening just to introduce this kind of exciting development. And if there's any public input, you could take public comments. There's no necessarily direction the planning commission needs to do. There's no motion that you need to make, but if you'd like to make comments or recommendations, you're welcome to do so, and we'll reflect those in the minutes. And again, there's a possibility that this could come back to you maybe next month, or if it's delayed for whatever reason, early October, but most likely next month. If you'd like to see it back with some of the additional accoutrements. And with that, I will take any questions from the commission.
Thank you for that, Mr. Moran. I'm trying to see if there's restrooms in there.
If there aren't, there will be. I know there's space for them. You can look at the site plan here. Yeah, they'll need restrooms, and maybe they wanted flexibility as to where those were located.
And that was heard a while ago, and it's going to be ADA compliant.
This is actually it's a new building, so it will be ADA. They'll have to make sure that it's ADA compliant. But the design, it's similar in size and function to the design that was done back in 2007.
And I can't. The print is so tiny on these.
I know.
Specs sheets. Is there a paint scheme?
I don't know, but it's an existing building, so I seem to recall the city engineer telling me it was kind of a tan. Mr. Megan, do you remember the color on this? And if we don't, if the color is glaring or it doesn't work, that's another thing that can be addressed with repainting.
You don't have a picture of the actual building?
That would have been great. I didn't have one. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's a modular, isn't it?
It's a prefab, yes.
So it's coming in two sections.
I think it's one, but it may be two.
Looks like two sections.
Okay, well, you may know better than I do.
Right.
There's a time frame involved here, correct? That
Yes.
They have to unload it by September or something.
I think it's the end of the month. I think it's September.
Okay,
3rd.
so how am I going to ask this? The city has to let them know that, yes, we're going to take it by September, whatever. Correct?
More than that, it needs to be allowed to be dropped. So they need to prepare not a concrete pad, a gravel pad would be adequate. And then the dressing it up with landscaping and other things could happen after that date.
Right. So going on the premise that, yes, they bring it down here. Who's going to pay for all the modifications that are going to be done on that? Where's that funds coming from?
Well, remember, it was a grant project initially.
Right, I was under the impression, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Bob.
No, that's okay.
I was under the impression that grant had a time limit on it, and if it wasn't used, then it was just going to go away.
And that's often the case with grants. However, there are ways to resurrect things, but I don't think it's a big budget that we're talking about for the design changes. And I know it's something that the city manager is confident that they have the funds to do. It's not a huge ticket item.
No, I understand that, but are you implying then that the grant is still there, or parts of it are still there?
There may be. I haven't been as close to the funding side of things. I just wanted to bring it as kind of an update in a design. Just let you all know that this was likely coming. Those are all good questions. We could come back next month and have answers on those.
Yeah, because this thing with the museum, that's been going on for a long time, quite a while. Yeah, I'd like to finally get that done. Yeah, thank you, Rob.
Sure.
My question is, when you start the building?
The building's done. They're talking about putting it on the site by the end of next month. So soon.
Because it's a good project. Because for a long time I was a member on the town radio museum member.
Mm-hmm.
Because Greenfield, we need a museum like that.
Yes.
What kind of thing you put in the museum? You don't have idea?
I don't know, but it would be, I think there's memorabilia from
Yeah.
Tom Rogers and there are things that are ready to be installed in there.
Because Greenfield has a lot of history. You're
Yes.
supposed to put in there.
Yeah.
A lot of pictures you can put in there.
Yes. Yeah.
How much in your budget? for
I
this
don't,
building?
I don't know. I think it's modest. I don't know if that means 20,000 or 100,000, but it's a modest budget.
When you build them, when you made it finished, you had a committee to run the museum?
I'm not sure who's going to run it. I think that would be up for discussion in terms of once the building's in place, who operates it, who's making the decisions on it.
Because for a long time, I was a member, not a person from the community. He joined to this kind of committee for the museum downstairs.
Uh-huh.
I know there are people interested.
Okay. That's good to know. We can let the city manager know that. Yes.
Because Mrs. McCullough was kind of like pushing for that, but she's moved away. So she's not even in the area anymore.
Commissioner Peters, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Commissioner Zavala?
No, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention Ms. McCullough too. I remember talking to her years ago, and as I don't hold me to it, but I think there was like 25,000. I think that was part of because there was a Tom Rogers committee, and so I don't know where those funds are, if that committee is still active, but that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Can I say something? I think so. It's acting. Well, I hear it's acting right now. I don't know who's the member.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think these are all good information for the staff to go back and try to get more information. And if not another presentation, it would at least be some answers during the staff comments at the end of the meeting.
Okay. All right. With that, we can open up public comments. Are there any public comments from the audience? Anybody online?
No public comments.
Going once?
Good evening, I'm Jessica again. In this Tom Rogers, which it's been around for a long time and information has been moved around quite often, but is this going to be something that goes back like to our first organization with school that we're going to have information on? Does the committee have information on that? Like the first water channels that were built, all of that, is that going to be all part of it? Because I also like to remind you that Helen McDonald was somewhat of a local historian that gathered a lot of the history of Greenfield, and there's actually a book that has a lot of stuff in there. So where did all of her stuff go? The history of it all, does the committee have it? And you guys know who is on the committee now, and those that are, if it's active or not, where did all of that information go? Because I think it's extremely important to draw in everything from the beginning of when you were part of all of the grasp from way out in that area. So that would be my question: is there going to be a divided room, where it goes through stages at the beginning time? And I think before we bring in the building, and we'll get everybody involved. I would just like to have all of that information. On the beach community, this is very important to the city of Greenfield. That's all over the South local communities. We can send some history that it's huge. This is an awesome.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, we'll close public comment, come back to planning commission discussion and comments. Start on that end. Commissioner Vasquez, you have any further comments? Commissioner Gallardo?
No, I'd just like to see this go forward. It's been on hold for the longest time. It's time to proceed with it.
Change your mind?
I recommend you to continue on this. With you.
Say that.
I recommend you to continue to building Tomb Raider Museum.
Okay.
All I'd like to know is that if we can, to bring in a historian to be there to, I guess, let people know who Tom Rogers was and how it progressed. So that's one thing I would like to see as a historian in there.
Question, how did you see Santa Cruz like reach out to Greenfield? Did we reach out or how did that happen?
No, I don't know. I don't know. There are situations like this where there's an extra building that a state agency or another municipality has, and they probably have listservs that say, hey, need a building, want a building, that match people up. But it might have been somebody in the Parks District. I mean, it's Monterey County Parks District, so there could have been some tie with CSUMB or I just don't know. But it fortunately got to this, to the city that there's availability to have this building located here.
Well, I really hope that this goes forward. I'm excited for this. I love our history, and I wish I can go to a place where I can, read newspapers or learn about our historic buildings. I'm learning right now. I didn't know that there was a theater here back in the day. So yeah, I hope that this does go forward. Okay.
Right, and I'm in support of this project too. I think this is a gift that fell from the sky. I mean, it happens to be the exact size of the one they were planning. And as I mentioned, in speaking with Ms. McCall in the past, that was one funding was to purchase the building was something that held this project back. So somehow the planets lined up and here we are. But I would like it to come back to us if there's any components that we can contribute to as far as design, paint color, and stuff like that.
Okay, great. I'll do that.
All right, so now we are on H, comments from Planning Commission and staff. Why doesn't staff start off since we've been speaking?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I just had a couple of announcements to make. We'll get further metrics to the Planning Commission once we tabulate them, but I wanted to report during the last fiscal year, the city processed $14.3 million in building permit valuated projects. So that is significantly less than what we have seen the last couple of years when we saw upwards of $40 million per year valuation. What we saw during this last year, we didn't see any multifamily construction of buildings going up. So that was mainly the result of that. The EAH project will be going up this fiscal year. It looks like this covered 324 building permits, and that's pretty close between, well, the number of building permits doesn't tell us a whole lot because it depends what those permits are for. In terms of cost recovery for development, the city collected a total of $1.8 million in cost recovery. So what all these numbers indicate is that development slowed a bit this past year. That being said, we invoiced EAH for $1.7 million just last week. So as we've seen, the development is going to ebb and flow over the years. So The second issue staff wanted to bring to the attention to the Planning Commission, pursuant to direction from the City Council, the department is preparing to host an economic development workshop with a roundtable type of a format. Three just outstanding participants have agreed to participate as panelists for the roundtable. Those panelists so far confirmed are John Corn, who is the owner of the Corn Nut Sut. So is one of the most iconic and historic properties in the city. Mr. Corn has agreed to participate as a panelist. He also, of course, is the landlord for these. There's been 2 cannabis operators, licensees at that site. So Mr. Corn would be able to answer a lot of questions about existing investment that are in the city currently. And so the second panelist is Sam Jahilili. Sam is a commercial development broker who represents the property owner in the Walnut Avenue specific plan. So Mr. Jahili is very busy involved in marketing the specific plan to really everybody. And so he'll be available and is looking forward to being a panelist for the workshop. And third, Mr. Greg Aguirre will be joining us. He is a commercial broker also, although he's Sacramento based and does a lot of work up and down the state of California. Greg is on contract with the city to bring the different parts of economic development together in the city. So he's going to want to participate in the roundtable. Right now, the format is intended to produce a podcast and be broadcast on social media, and so it will be readily available to the community, and it will be presented with a byline in Spanish as well. Well, we're working on that. A date for that has not been set. It probably will be in September. The city manager thinks that it most likely will resume once city council starts up, and so it'll probably be in September. I'm very interested in that you might have for the department as we put this together. We may extend an invitation to the new Speaker of the Assembly, Mr. Rivas. He would be able to provide a lot of valuable information should his schedule allow him to come. He's been a long-time friend of the city of Greenfield and has spent time here in the chambers talking about various issues, but he might be a wonderful analyst as well. So we're looking forward to putting that together. And so that concludes my remarks at this time. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I have the most important remark. I'd like to welcome our new staff planner who's sitting to my right, Evelyn Neza is her name. I don't say hello, but she holds a master's degree from Irvine, UC Irvine, in public policy, and a bachelor's degree in land use planning, I believe, right? Political science. But right now, she is studying many of all of our cannabis regulatory permit processes. As you may know, we changed the calendar on processing the cannabis permitting renewals so that we can have most of our licensees before decision-making bodies like yourself and the city council at the same time. We're about a month late for this fiscal year, but we have all of the information and we're analyzing now for renewals for our 5 licensees. So we're looking forward to that, and you're welcome to the city. Evelyn, we're very privileged to have her join staff in this time. I think that's it.
Okay, anybody have comments?
I have a comment. So a few months ago, I brought up, I want to say maybe 2 months ago when Mrs. Tugel came to our planning commission meeting. I brought up the dog waste bags months before. And so when I wanted to know an update on that, she said that we didn't have the budget to install these waste bags in parks here in Greenfield. And a few weeks ago, I was walking my dog, and if Braulio can show the picture that I emailed him, it made me really sad to see this. And this is exactly, can you zoom in? So someone installed this, I don't know what to call it, but someone installed this and people are putting the dog waste in there because they don't want to be carrying it around town. This is embarrassing. Like, we're better than this. I want to know, how much does it cost to install one or two at each park? And I spend a lot of time and I spend a lot of time in Soledad. My daughter plays sports over there. And so I walk in Soledad every day. And these dog waste bags are all over town by the high school. They're not even at the parks. I mean, they have some at the parks, but they're all over town. And so I'm not asking for them to be all over town, but if we can install 2 at each park, or, Patriot Park, a big park that we have here in town, Patriot Park. And if I don't know if planning has any other parks that they would want to have these dog waste bags, dog waste bag.
It's a receptacle.
Okay.
for bags.
Yes. So, I thought this was embarrassing. I think we can do better than this. So I would like to know, this is in the corner of Elm and 12th. So I just wanted to show you guys.
That's kind of
We'll have it after this meeting.
Yeah,
it's a DIY.
Yeah.
Got your attention, and now we can have this conversation. I mean, if it's needed this bad that somebody had to construct that, maybe we can address it.
Yes. Well, I agree with everything you said, so I will look into it and do everything we can to address this properly.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, the other day when I was riding through town, I think it was Friday of last week. I was passing by the cannabis place that just right on this side of Memorial Hall, north of Memorial Hall. And there was a young man driving out, so I stopped to talk to him. And I asked him when they were planning on going into full operation. And he said they've already been in full operation for quite a while. And then I said, well, then why don't I see a bunch of vehicles out here? Because they had basically said they were going to hire a number of people. They're fully staffed and it's only 5 people that work there. And I was under the impression that they're going to hire a lot more. And he also said that I told him that I had spoken to someone, or you had spoken with someone, one of us did, about perhaps having a tour there. He says, make the call any day you want, and we'll walk you through it. He says it's everything, it's a state of the art there. That's why they don't need many people. Anyways, he also said that they're actually expanding. He said that right next to it, they're going to add another building to it. I wasn't aware of that because I haven't seen any digging over there or anything. So,
Commissioner Gallardo, if I may, just for clarity, I believe that you're referring to the cannabis licensee located at 687 El Camino Real. It is north, but you're not referring to Loudpack.
no, not the one in Cherry. I'm referring to the one that's immediately north of the Memorial Hall building.
Okay, right,
Yeah,
687. Yes,
probably the
you're
next
right.
one.
Okay.
Yeah. And he did say, like I mentioned, being redundant here, that they are going to be expanding there and they will be taking on some more people, but he didn't mention how many.
Yes.
Anyway, so one of my other comments is, people have asked me about the Welcome to Greenfield sign. That's like been going on like forever. Another thing that I have brought up in the past on a couple of different occasions is, perhaps putting the flashing lights on the stop signs north of town on Pine. No, not Pine, no, on Cypress and ECR, because it's like in the middle of the night, you'll be driving through, well, even in the middle of the day. You're going through there pretty good. And they're not even aware there's stop signs there. And I've seen a couple of major collisions there in the past. Yeah, I think that's all I have for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Orquídez?
I was I actually have more. So about 2 weeks ago, I found a dog on here in town, and I called the non-emergency number to request animal control to come by. And they said that they were not working on weekends. And so I posted it on social media, and there was a lot of comments from our community stating that they've also have called on weekends or after hours, and they've also had the same response. So I got some clarification, and we do in fact have animal control working, I believe, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day, I think. And so is there any way we can put that out there on our social media? Because I think the community is confused on that. I was told that animal control, I think they have a different name, their service. What is it? Do you know? Community service officer, something.
Yes.
Yes, there you go. So I don't know if that's where the confusion was when I called the non-emergency requesting animal control. I'm not sure, but if we can let the community know that we do in fact have someone working Monday. Is it Monday through Sunday? Can I get some clarification on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can put that on our social media. And then that's it. So thank you.
The chief of the last city council meeting, he actually addressed that. And he made the council aware that they were the hours of the code enforcement officers, and I call them the dog catchers, forget about all that being politically correct, but he said that, yeah, they are on call on the weekends.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Animal control.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so I was looking at the city's webpage, and it looks like there is a place for community complaints and input now on there. You can click on there. So that has been updated. That's great. I wanted to welcome Miss Evelyn. I'm sorry I didn't catch your last name. I would address you that way, but welcome to the building and planning. I think you were in that KSBW story that aired a couple of weeks ago. You did a really great job there. That was such a good piece on Greenfield's growth. So I wanted to thank you for that. That was a very good story. And I know this is probably outside of our purview, but do you guys know when the traffic safety meetings are? Because I think the flashing sign issue that you are concerned about should be brought to them. But I have no idea who or where and when they meet.
I do not know, Madam Chair, but I will find out. We should probably post that online as well.
There is such a thing though, right? The traffic safety committee.
The last information that I had was that it existed but was inactive because of a lack of participation. So I will have to check to see if it's been reestablished or if the membership are meeting on a regular basis. I don't know.
Right. And then I just wanted to follow up on my comment that I made when the public works director was here about the park on Barola Circle. I did go and take pictures because I would, I tend to exaggerate sometimes, I'm told, so I wanted to make sure it was as big a gap as I recalled, and it really is, so I have pictures of that, and if we could figure out who's responsible for that park upkeep. I think that it's Smith and Enright, our contractors for the LLMDs. So if that's their job, then maybe I could get these pictures to you and they can be forwarded to whoever can address it.
Yes, we'll put that on there. We will find out.
Okay. All right, and just to let everybody know, there's about 30 minutes left for National Night Out that's being held right now at the gazebo. If you guys want to rush down there and see if there's any hot dogs
Sure.
left.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Please.
I have another announcement.
Sure.
Let me just share it so everyone can see. So we are going to have a workshop on the 3rd of August. It's going to be basically will I need a permit workshop. It's going to be from 3 to 4. It's going to be here in the council chambers, but it's also going to be on Zoom and it's going to be on Facebook Live. It's going to be both in English and Spanish. So it's a 1 hour long workshop. It's going to be given by our building official, Rafael Cornejo. He'll have a presentation that he's going to be giving out for info on the building code and stuff like that, as well as answering any questions from the community members as to what needs a building permit, why, and all the safety information. So we do extend the invitation to all the community members if they're interested. It's going to be on the 3rd of August from 3 to 4.
All right, well, thank you for that. That's in a couple of days.
Mhm.
All right. Any other comments from staff? Okay, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting 7:31. Yes.
No worries, I don't.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, so they're back. They're back.
When did we approve that?
No, that a long time ago.